Go see your mother. You were only given one. Go see your mother. And you know that you will never have another. Go see your mother. Go see your mom.
Welcome to What Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia, and this is my mother, Ima. Hey, Ima.
Hello.
All right.
How
So
was Shabbos by you?
Shabbos was good. Shabbos was good. Kept it simple, just really enjoyed speaking to people, talking to people, socializing, davening, learning. I feel like it's so important and it helps me recenter myself to get ready for the week, you know. So I thank God I had a really good Shabbos
Baruch
this
Hashem.
week. I was going to talk to you. So the topic I was going to talk to you about was actually this letter to the editor on this dating forum that is on this Jewish magazine.
You talking about
And
dating navigator?
yeah, this one was very
So
interesting.
hysterical. Some of those. I feel like saying to some of those people, "Aren't you an adult? Can't you make your own?" Especially I am 30 years old. And I've been dating this man for so long, and we are a perfect couple. But my parents don't approve. 30 years old, come on.
So this one is very similar to that concept. So I'll read it to you. And they use a lot of English, so I'll try to translate it for our listeners if they're not familiar.
Okay.
We have a boy who is a Ben Bias bias. A Ben Bias is somebody who you semi-adopt into your family. A very solid, incredible guy whom we've watched grow into the amazing Talmid Chacham he is, a smart person. He has a lot to show for himself as he is successful, good-looking, solid from, and has great midos.
I'm waiting to see. So what's wrong?
Just wait for it. He's been shidduch dating for a few years unsuccessfully. Now he is dating a girl for a couple months, and we've never seen him so happy. But my husband and I are scratching our heads about it. This girl is a Baal Tshuva who has an unsavory past and a negative reputation. Much of her old life is open for all of us to see on social media. She claims to have changed, but then why wouldn't she have gotten rid of her old media accounts, pictures, etc.? We haven't given our opinion on her as he hasn't asked, but we're wondering if we should intervene. Do we assume he knows and is fine with it? Any advice would be appreciated.
Okay, so what's the consensus among the panel?
The consensus, it's a mix, to be honest. Because it's like on one end, it's like mind your business, who cares? The other end is more of like, well, if this person's a red flag, and this guy's feeling kind of desperate and wanting to just go ahead and get married to the next girl that gives him attention, maybe that should be a problem and you should intervene. And it's very frustrating because they say that, she has an unsavory past and negative reputation. Like, what does that mean? Because they'd be like, oh, I don't wear stockings and I don't want to cover my hair when I get married. Or it could be like, oh, I was a party girl and ran a train on me like for a few years. Like, it's very hard to tell, what it is. But I can understand the idea of having red flags and having somebody that has had a bad reputation. And if they're supposed to, I guess, be a Baal Tshuva, they're supposed to, you're not, because that's the other thing. Should be ashamed of your past, or should you be somebody who, should just go ahead and be flaunting their previous lifestyle? Like, as you as a Baal Tshuva, did you try to do that? Did you try to hide your past, or you were just very open about it? Like, how did you tackle something like this?
No, first of all, that's the problem these days with social media. Is that when I was saying we didn't have social media, and so the past was the past, and that was it. But now with social media, things are out there, pictures are out there, everything's for people to see, and it's harder to hide your past. I didn't hide my past. Yeah. Hey, like I led a non from life. Yeah, there was a time when I, didn't keep kosher. There was a time I didn't keep Shabbos, and And as a professional singer, yes, that I sang, and I was employed as a professional singer in a church choir, and yet what can I say? This was my past, and you know, and that's it. I mean, I don't think I think somebody let's put it this way. I think somebody who tries to hide their past, I I I would trust somebody more who wasn't trying to hide their past, who was saying, "Yeah, that's true. Yeah, this is who I was before I became from, and now I'm a different person, and now I don't do those things, and that's it." But like you said, they don't go into to these as about shady past. Like, what do you mean by shady past? Like,
Well,
were you pictures of her in a bathing suit? I mean,
yeah, like what, like how, like
and also these aren't his parents.
yeah,
These are not his parents. These are friends.
it's true. But they're
And
not friends. They're more of like adoptive parents in a situation. I don't know. Again, there's not a lot of information going on this.
mhm,
It's like that's a problem I have with some of these questionnaires is that they don't give enough details to make give solid advice.
mhm.
It's like, well, what's bad? What give me examples of
How
bad?
old is this guy, too?
Yeah.
Is he very young? Is he 19, 20 years old? Or is he like 30-ish? In which case he's pretty much has some life experiences already
Yeah.
where he can
That's a
make these decisions for himself.
well, the question I guess I'd ask you is what would be your limit if you were dating somebody, in your early 20s as a Balchuva, like, and they had a shady past? What would be the line in the sand that that's just too much for me?
Um, Substance abuse.
Substance abuse. Okay.
Yeah, you got to be real careful with that because um, there were, I knew, I met people who married guys who had been drug addicts, and they were supposed to have been re- rehabilitated and off the stuff, and it turned out that they weren't, that they
Mhm.
went back to using. That's the problem with people who, sad to say, are in the drug culture. Unfortunately, I mean, if there's anybody listening to our podcast who was and has totally gotten away from it, Yasha Koch, this is wonderful. Continue. Good, the best of luck to you. But you run a real risk with somebody who was a substance abuser. A
Mm.
very big risk. And I've heard some horrible stories of of people whose parents, in fact, were off the stuff for a long time and then went back on it and OD'd and died. You have one of your siblings
Yeah, you might know.
had a friend who that's what happened to her mother. But I was very lucky. I never met anybody who was a substance abuser. I was just very, very lucky about that. That never crossed my path. As far as as far as what can I say, quote unquote, I guess what we would consider inappropriate sexual activities. I would say, wow, I never knew you had that much energy. I
You're
gotta be impressed.
oh god. Yeah, so like the that's really where you have to ask yourself, like, what was your limitations in this scenario?
I was pretty broad-minded. Like I said, I never had the opportunity to even meet anybody who's a substance abuser. The thing, that it just never crossed my path. The people I met were very, you know, very normal individuals with, the past that they might have had would be okay. You're not keeping kashrus, not keeping Shabbos. Maybe maybe they had a non-Jewish girlfriend on the side before they became from. Maybe they were dating a non-Jewish girl at the time, but that was about that was about it. I never had the chance to go out with anybody that was really, you know, that really had a what we call real shady, type past. Except there was one guy who it turned out before he became from, he was a bouncer in a strip joint.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we've talked about that. We've talked about that. It's something that I notice when it comes to like dating, where it's just not seeing the red flags. Like even when you weren't religious and you were dating, did you ever date somebody who like you missed a red flag or you didn't pay attention to?
Oh, for sure.
Like
For
what?
sure. That's
Like
that's
what was
true.
the red flag?
The red flag was, but the thing is, I didn't recognize it at the time, uh, because we talked about this before once that in my day there was no discussion about domestic abuse. It was like totally ignored. Or if there was a situation of domestic abuse, the wife was always blamed. Like, well, what are you doing to make him upset? What are you doing to make him angry? Oh, stop being such a nag, cook a nicer dinner type thing. The blame was kind of like put on the victim. It wasn't until many, many years later, until actually around the year 2000, that you had a couple talk show psychologists that actually brought attention to the idea of red flags and domestic abuse. And hey, it doesn't matter, even if you do get him angry, there's no excuse for domestic abuse. People get us angry all the time. And there was no, like, as far as psychological abuse was concerned, there was one guy who, looking back now, that I dated, who I see now was psychologically abusive,
Like what?
mentally abusive. Um, if I would ask him questions about something, his response was always dummy. He was always calling me stupid, dummy. And I didn't have a very good um, self image at the time. And I thought, well, maybe he's right. Maybe I'm kind of stupid. Maybe that was a stupid question. Now I look back, I said, I would never tolerate that behavior anymore. Because if I went out with a man and the minute he called me stupid or dummy or any type of names, I would stand up and say, well, goodbye. Because I wished it was nice meeting you, but it wasn't. And I think I'll take a lift home. Bye, and just walk away and call and lift and take a lift home. Yeah. And, if I had to, if I were in a situation now about that. But at those days, um, like I said, there wasn't even any discussion about that type of thing. And there was one movie we saw, which I thought was really funny. In fact, I saw it twice. It was called Catch 22 with Alan Arkin,
Hmm.
about these. It was written, I forgot the name of the man who wrote it. His last name was, I think, Heller was the name of the man who wrote it. It was sent from a novel, and they made it into a movie. And it was about these American soldiers in Italy and how they discovered there's like a whole type of military government conspiracy that he uncovers, that that's involving corruption with the Italian authorities. And there were some scenes in the movie. It's kind of like it's a comedy. It's like poking fun at the military establishment, you might say, the government,
Hmm.
corporate military establishment. And there were some scenes that I thought were pretty funny. And after he said, "Now you thought those scenes were funny, but I'm more sophisticated. To me, those scenes weren't funny. Yeah, I'm
Interesting.
not like you. I'm more sophisticated than that." Looking back at I look back now, I think, maybe this guy was a total egotist.
Pretentious a-hole, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I guess you're saying also that it was kind of common for men to put their hands on their girlfriends a lot.
Huh? Come again?
You said it was very common for men to be physically abusive and it would be okay.
Well, there was it wasn't it was okay because it was that it wasn't considered okay. It was considered that, what did the woman do to bring it on?
Mm.
That was the attitude.
So,
I mean, I know somebody who went to court at the time because she had a very, like, dangerously abusive marriage, dangerously abusive. And her lawyer said, don't bring that up to the judge because he'll just say, what did you do to bring it on?
wow.
Yeah.
Jeez. So what about, I guess, so then what was the ideal relationship back in the 60s and 70s? of a woman, what woman expected.
Ideal relationship.
Yeah, like the ideal man and the ideal relationship.
Well, it was like the 50s and 60s. The man was expected to be the breadwinner,
Hmm.
and the woman was expected to be the housewife.
Yeah, but was that because I'm saying, but between you and your friends, you'd always, would you always just talk about your ideal guy, your ideal situation? What was that like for someone in the 60s and 70s?
The ideal guy, more of a, women, girls were looking for more of a take charge type person.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's very interesting because
and
today I
also,
think,
and also who fit the bill.
yeah, of course,
Yes, they would fit the whole bill. Yeah.
because it's something where it's just like men now are trying to take charge, but they're very confused and they're very worried because if they take charge too much, then they're a controlling asshole. If they don't take charge enough, then they're a lazy piece of shit.
I remember one time I was joking on with your father. I said to him, I like the take charge man. He says, yeah, so you can sit back and do nothing.
So yeah, so it's very much in this precarious situation where it's just like, well, how much take charge can I do until all of a sudden I'm a giant red flag? Like there's this phrase, I think we've talked about this before, about the idea of something called the ick, where like you're just disinterested in the person, just on an emotional level. Like you can't explain it, but you just don't want to be around the person. The this guy just goes ahead and saves and all these videos of girls complaining about what they like, what the problem with the guy. One of them was like, "Oh, I don't like it when a guy, wears sneakers. I don't like it when a guy, sneezes in front of me." It's comedic, but also kind of sad. Where like girls nowadays have all these seem to have these high standards of what they want out of a guy, and if a guy just wants a girl who's fit and doesn't complain so much, he's considered a horrible human being. So
Well, no, I think human nature is human nature. I don't think they say the more things change, the more they stay the same. I think there are certain aspects of human nature that have pretty much stayed the same. The complaints that I hear these days about shidduchim and dating are the same complaints that we had. All the good ones are taken. This guy seems so wishy-washy. This guy, this guy. Yeah, I hear the same complaints going on as when I was dating.
it was basically so there's nothing real changing. Basically, no matter how much they're trying to make a difference in this world and try to like equalize the genders, it's never going to happen.
And nature, nature has a way of fighting back.
Do, do you think guys from the 1920s are the same or different than guys in the 2020s? And that's just by looking at your parents and grandparents and
The
what
only,
kind of relationships they had.
yeah, I think one of the good things is that women these days do not tolerate abuse, be it physical, be it verbal, be it mental. Girls are just not tolerating it, and they're recognizing it, and this is good. This is very, very good. I think. I think that there was a lot of abuse that was not recognized, was kind of swept under the rug, or just like I said, or the woman was blamed. Well, what did you do to bring it on? Yada yada, type of thing. And it's good to see that we've gotten away from that. Also, I like the balance that I see with the men of your generation, where they're more involved in their children's lives. They're more involved in nurturing their children, which is good. I see more young men coming home and helping with the housework a little bit, helping with the kids more, which is in my day, fathers in the 50s and early 60s were expected just a good father basically brought made a living and brought home the bread, and weren't really some were involved in their kids' lives, but not to the extent that they are now. Because I remember my father-in-law telling me that when his children were babies, he would not pick them up. He didn't start really picking them up until they were more almost like toddlers, like at least walking.
Wow.
And the first time we wanted him to pick up your oldest sister, he refused to do it. He said no, he felt very uncomfortable holding a baby. He said that he told, and that's when he told me that he didn't even pick up his own kids as babies. So your father and I told him to sit down, and we handed him your big sister's baby. We handed him the baby. Said, "Here, sit now. Here now, hold the baby." And so he was holding her. He was like scared. He's holding her, and the minute she started to cry, my mother-in-law ran over and took her right out of his arms. But he eventually adjusted because I'm finally, after a few months visiting him, and as I came in the door, he put out his arms and he actually took the baby from me. He was so proud of himself and actually held her. You know, he graduated to that point where he felt comfortable actually picking up the baby. But it was a whole process that he had to go through to make that adjustment.
So he was scared. That's interesting. You say he was scared.
Yeah.
Like, I guess men were taught that they were too incompetent to take care of children.
Maybe you might be right. I don't know that for sure, but that sounds like that might be correct.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting you say that, because I think it's just something that, like, I think no one really brings up, because everyone shows it in media and people talk about the past like men were just these chauvinist pigs who didn't care about taking care of their children and didn't want them to be sissies and didn't touch them, and it's not my problem, it's the woman's fault, woman's problem, yada yada yada. And like, your story you're saying now, like, it flips the script almost, where it's just like, well, no, I'm not going to take care of the child. I don't know anything about children. My wife does. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not taking any chances. This is a human being. I can screw this stuff up.
Yeah, I think you might be right about that. I think you might be right about that. Yeah, I wouldn't call the men like quote unquote chauvinist pigs. You have to look at the environment that they were raised in. That like I said, we mentioned before that boys were told that real men don't cry, that type of thing. The idea was that men should be tough and should be encouraged to be the defenders of society, that these are the guys, these are the ones that are going to be soldiers. And you have to understand, my generation, the 50s, I mean, the 20th century had just come through 2 major world wars.
Mhm.
And so the role of the man being the defender of the country was very real, because we had 2 major world wars where many countries in the world were actually attacked. And the army was the only thing that kept the population from being totally overrun by this enemy. Look, Pearl Harbor. The United States was physically attacked on its own soil. And you even had situations during World War II where you had some Japanese submarines that managed to get to California and that fired some shots. And it showed in the newspapers. My father was telling me that there were pictures of people. Thank God no people were hurt, but there were people that were putting to their garage doors that were shot up with bullets. That's how close the Japanese got.
So then I have a follow-up question with that. What was your ideal thought of how you wanted your sons to be before you had sons? And how did that, or if that changed over the years, and where is it now?
I wanted my sons to be sensitive human beings. I didn't want them to be real macho, but I wanted them to be able to stick up for themselves. I remember one time your older brother, there was some kid that was bullying him, and he hit this kid and let him have it. And when the principal called and complained to me about it, I said, wait a minute. I said, do you really want these boys to be wimps? He did. Of course, needless to say, the principal did not buy my explanation. But I think back, but hey, wait a minute. We, there's a balance that needs to be. We've got to be real. And true, you don't want fights breaking out in school. But on the other hand, your kid can't be put in a situation where he's going to be pushed around all the time.
So I think that's a very common frustration, and I have that too. An idea of looking at my child and, God willing, seeing them grow and having to deal with bullies. And I have this passive aggressive idea where I'm just going to document and send an email to the rabbi every single time my child gets teased with what they were, who called them the name, what was the name, what time was it, and ask them to please take care of it. And I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to build up a case. And then if they go ahead and don't do anything for about a month, I'm going to tell my son, you go ahead and make fun of them too. It's a two-way street, and see what happens. And if they come and complain, I say, well, it took me a whole month to build up this whole case, and you guys did nothing. My son said
Yeah.
something back, and look at what happened.
Well, I
So it's
remember,
just,
yeah, one time, well, your father did something similar to that, where some some guy who some kid was bullying your older brother for a long time, and I think your older brother, what did he do? I forgot. Oh, no, it was your younger brother. Now I remember. These kids were really bullying him. So he knew he didn't want to hit them because he knew he'd get into trouble, but he had an idea. It was after school, they put their knapsacks down and they kind of like went off to play or whatever. He very quietly, to his 5 kids, he took these 5 knapsacks, climbed to the top, almost to the top of the tree. It was in front of the school, and he hung their knapsacks up on the trees and then climbed down and told them, you bullied me, you called me a name, there are your knapsacks, go get them. So so one of the fathers called your father to complain, and your father said, the way your kid was bullying my child, you're lucky my kid didn't kill him.
well, it's funny because like when I was dealing with kids making fun of me and picking on me and I fought back, I would get suspended every single time.
Yeah.
But I'd only
A
get
lot of parents
suspended.
have frustrations with that.
I,
That the kid who's being bullied, when he finally has enough, he's the one that gets in trouble.
well, what's funny was one time a guy who was a quote unquote friend of mine was just being really mean to me. So I told him to knock it off. We got into a fight. He was put me he was on top of me, choking me. No
Mm.
one else was around. The two kids
Okay.
in front of me were just doing nothing. This was in 8th grade.
Mhm.
I got so pissed off because I didn't want to fight back because if I fought back, I'd get in trouble.
Mm.
So I went ahead and I complained to my teachers. They did nothing. He never got in
Yeah.
trouble. I pushed,
Yeah.
pushed. He finally got suspended. And after he got suspended, what happened? He didn't talk to me for 4 years straight. He was so angry and so spiteful, like a little
Yeah.
whatever pansy little thing.
Yeah.
He was so upset. He didn't speak to me for 4 years.
Actually, you're kind of lucky he didn't speak to you.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want a kid like that speaking
no,
to me
it's
or even coming near me.
it's the frustration. It's the frustration where it's just like, here you have these kids, you know, and it's Lord of the Flies every
Yeah.
single day, and the teachers are just trying to do their job, but they fail miserably. I seriously think some of these teachers just fail miserably because I don't think they're paid enough. I don't think the good ones stay. I think the competency is just out the window. I think if you gave them like maybe about $100,000 a year payment and really supplied them with everything and gave them like a nice good cushion, they'll be really on top of things like wine on rice.
Yeah.
They're dealing with 25, 50 kids, individually with
Mhm.
so much junk, and they have their own stuff on their own plate. They're not going to care. They're not going to care. But it's a thing where it's just like, I have this philosophy I've been thinking of since I was a kid, and I'm doing it now with my child, where if you just need to guide them like 5%, but watch them 100%. And if you let them think, you let them figure things out, you let them, I guess, be involved on their own and just watch them most of the time, they'll make the right decisions.
Mhm.
9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
And I felt that since I was a kid, and I'm doing it now. Just watching, they were going down the stairs. I'm like, okay, let me just be next to them in case anything happens. Nope,
Yeah.
they turned around, went backwards, did all the right stuff, yada yada yada.
Mhm.
And it's just like, I think what happens is people freak out and they get scared, and they overcorrect or they overdo. And I think that's the other frustration I see with, I guess with raising kids and watching kids and teaching kids. I think they don't trust them enough. And I think there's some part where you have to find a way to trust them. You know?
Mhm.
Because like if they know that their teacher expects them to be good because they trust them, they know that they're going to be good, they'll want to be a good kid.
So that's what I get a quite like. Sometimes I think about these bullies, like what kind of, and my experience with kids who have been bullied, I mean, who are bullies, and when I call the parents, is that the parents aren't too much better than the kids.
Yep.
The parents will, the parents say, "Why are you complaining?" Why am I complaining? Because your kid is making life miserable for my child. Can you at least correct them? Was in a situation once where I was subbing in a preschool, and I had a water bottle with me, and I really needed it because it was a hot day, and I really needed to drink. And I put my water bottle down, and some kids grabbed my water bottle, and they just, turned it upside down, and they buried it in the dirt and everything. I couldn't even drink from it. So I approached the teachers of these kids that were playing outside, the preschool teachers, and the reaction of these teachers shocked me, totally shocked me. I thought they would give the class a little lecture about respecting people's property and not touching things that don't belong to you. No, their reaction was they turned it on me. I said, nobody in my class would ever do that. I mean, nobody in your what kind of reaction is that? Your kid took something that wasn't theirs, was a water bottle. They turned it upside down. They, buried it in the dirt so I couldn't drink from it. And you're telling me nobody in my class would do that. I would give my class, if I were a teacher, I would give my class such a lecture about other people's property. And whether or not they did, I said, I don't know who did it. I'm not going to start an, investigation. In the future, you see a water bottle there, you leave it alone, and you apologize to this teacher now. And I was surprised that these preschool teachers did not have their kids take any responsibility for this. So, in fact, there was this one situation where there was this boy in one of the preschool classes where I was an assistant, not here in Florida, by the way. So it's nobody here in Florida. So if you're listening to this podcast in Florida, it's nobody here in Florida. And this boy, you could tell at the age of, these were 4-year-olds. This boy already could see had some very serious psychological problems. Very antisocial, very violent, beating up on the other kids constantly. One day the teacher was talking about, health habits like coughing into your hand, sneezing into your, elbow, and not coughing people's faces. He purposely got up and went from kid to kid to kid, purposely coughing in their face.
Wow.
When she said that, of course, she pulled him away, and she had him sit, away from everybody. So I was telling the kids, we were outside, and somebody had spilled Cheerios all over the ground, all over the mulch there. And I told the kids, don't eat anything from the ground because you can get pinworms. I told them that these are little worms that, that you can get inside. You do not eat anything from the ground. So the teacher comes over, she goes, he's so upset. He purposely picked up a Cheerio from the ground and ate it. And then he thought about what you said and he started crying. He's so upset. She goes, please tell him you were joking. She wanted me to lie. And so I said to her, no, I'm not going to tell him I was joking because I wasn't. I said, and maybe next time I tell him, be careful, don't cross the street, there's a car coming. Maybe he'll think I was joking then too. I said, no. I said, and that young man better learn to develop a regard for authority if he expects to do anything in his life except go to jail. I'm about to lie to this kid. And the preschool teacher wants me to lie. What are you teaching this kid?
Out of curiosity, how many years ago was this?
My God, this kid, I'm trying to think. It had to be about at least 20 years ago.
So 2025, 2005?
Probably, yeah.
2005, you were teaching a class?
Yeah, I was a preschool assistant. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, that would make sense. Probably around 2005, right? So I'm wondering if this, whatever happened to this kid, because like I said, this kid really had some But the thing is that the teacher,
Yeah.
was being too much chesed, overly sympathetic.
Yeah.
She wasn't disciplining him properly. The reaction should have been, well, you knew, so you shouldn't have done it.
I think
But to show him so much, oh, the poor thing.
I think that's the problem, is that kids aren't learning their responsibilities, because what's happening, like we're almost out of time, by the way, but I was just saying to Ruthie about situations where you have people where they're figuring out different manipulation tactics, not really on purpose, but more of like, oh, this saves me time, money, and energy. Like if I cry, I don't get in as much trouble as if I didn't cry. If I say it was a mistake, I don't get in as much trouble as if I said I did it on purpose. And it's just like trying to do these things where it's like, if I placate to somebody, if I lean into the sympathy, it'll help my case. And I can't deny that in reality that can help in a court case and in law. Like, you do want to try to use sympathy to protect you, but like as a child, you want to teach them how to have integrity and honesty, and not the idea of manipulation and lying.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And that I would say is a frustration that I have, where just like I can't deny that that's actually a functioning, usable method, but it has to be done in a way that is healthy, I guess. Am I making sense? Like when you were a kid, how would you try to get yourself out of trouble as a kid?
Well, none of my tactics worked. I got into trouble anyway.
What were the tactics? Please tell me.
Blaming another kid. Blaming my sister.
Blaming your sister. Cute. Anything else?
Blaming my cousins down the street, Eddie and Johnny. Eddie and Johnny did it.
Like, what would you get in trouble for in general?
No. Looking back, I don't remember. Oh, I remember one time particularly. Yeah, one time I got mad about something, and I took a stick and I hit it against the glass of my grandparents' basement door and broke the glass.
Oh, how old were you?
I'd be very young. Had to be 5 or 6 or something like that. And did I get spanked? I got spanked for that. Yep.
Alrighty. Well, we're almost out of time. We'll talk to you, God willing, later.
Okay,
I love you.
Sweetheart. Love you. Have a nice week.
You too. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's another episode of Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. Thanks for listening to us kvetch, reminisce, and of course, get a little motherly advice along the way. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your favorite Jewish mother or anyone who needs a little guilt in their life. Got a story, question, or just want to say hi? Send us a message. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, call your mother. She worries.